This topic is, man, it just continues to get more and just getting out there. And we need to make sure that we talk about it in just a little more detail, because there are a lot of disingenuous pieces of trash that attempt to conflate arguments. And I think they do that on purpose because they want to use people as shields. And in this subject matter, it's people with some sort of disability, right? This is why the term accessibility has grown to mean and really conflate two particular issues that could be different and seen as different. And that is the idea of appealing to the lowest common denominator, making games easy and having easy modes, versus trying to have some sort of feature that accommodates some person with a particular disability, like, I don't know, colorblindness or something. And what they've done is try to conflate those two issues, which, yeah, there may be some sort of crossover in some aspects, but I think in a lot they can certainly be separated. But again, this is what disingenuous people do. What happened that started his conversation was this video here. And there was this blue check mark by the name of Rootism, who does a lot about disability, from what I know and what I picked up, talking about disabilities in gaming. But this is where it fucked up, because he says, but he's quoting people, but how could you add difficulty options to Dark Souls? Which I don't know anybody that's ever said that. What people have said is they don't want them there. The game doesn't call for that, and the Soulsborne series do not call for that. Stop trying to inject your personal wants and desires onto the game. Is more so, but that's how these disingenuous pieces of shit do. They start with a complete straw man of the overall position, often dumbing it down. And he points to the new Forza, which has an option in which you can literally slow it down. You can slow it down. I'll blow this up. Slow down the game. Right there. So in the accessibility options, there's an offline game speed. So you could take that all the way down to 40. So basically you move it in slow motion, which again is making the game easier. Notice how they have now put that in the accessibility option. It's basically making the game easier. So now he's now driving and the game is uber slow. And what's hilarious enough is that he still can't make this fucking turn. Watch this. He's about to wreck right here. So despite giving him the option, the motherfucker still couldn't make he still couldn't make the turn, which I just found hilarious. It's kind of a non-point. But on a serious note here, let me try to break down what this conversation is, because you have all these weirdos who act as if, what's the problem, right? Why can't we've covered people, TikTokers and games journalists. Every game they think should have an easy mode, right? So that's specifically what I'm talking about here. Is that regards is those folks who at some point, some people try to hide behind the disability thing, but ultimately, who I'm specifically referring to are the people that are talking about the easy of the modes. So what that really pertains to is being successful at completing bits of the game. That's really what this is. And their inability to do that for some, and therefore the game should have options to where they can then be successful in those regards, whether it be completing the story of a game, completing the game or whatever, or being able to even get through it, the first level, whatever it is. They want there to be some sort of mechanism built and baked into the game upon which they could change to then accommodate them. This is why, and I'm going to start, before I go into breaking this down, I want to start by saying that's a one-sided argument. I have never known anybody who likes to play more difficult games, like myself, that has bitched and moaned about, I don't know, Animal Crossing or some game that is clearly designed to cater to people that just fucking, want to kind of just, Lady River plays. I'm not knocking Animal Crossing. Those are one of the most sold games. But, people that kind of just want to just go through kind of having an experience of playing whatever game. I'm not, and I don't know anybody that's like Animal Crossing should have a hard mode where, I don't know, you can kill islanders. There's more stakes on. You could die and it can wipe your entire progress if you get bit by one of them tarantulas or one of them big ass whales you could get. Whatever it is. I don't know. But I don't know anybody that does that. I don't know anybody. It's one-sided, okay? It's one-sided. They feel games that don't have them or games that are about to be created should then always encompass them. It's not us saying that your easy-ass game that anybody could waltz through should accommodate us. It's one-sided, and I think that's very important to mention, okay? But going back to the point, they say, well, what's the big deal? It doesn't impact you. Bullshit, right? We have seen, and this is why it's become more of a conversation, because it started to cross over into competitive space, and it's also crossing into games, and people are still griping about games that have always, which is what the OP, the original post says, we're bringing up Dark Souls, and so we know we're going into Elden Ring, and you know people are already crying, talking about, oh, we need to make sure that they have difficulty changing and all of that. That's what they want, okay? We've seen games be completely broken from year to year. So if you have a game that's a franchise, because it's trying to embody, or rather not embody, it's more appealing to the lowest common denominators to lower the barrier of entry. Fighting games have this problem right now. It's a huge argument amongst the fighting game community. A huge argument. We've seen this with Street Fighter. We've seen this with Guilty Gear. Where, for example, the parry window from game to game gets widened. It gets widened, right? So the reaction speed, which is what gaming is about, by the way, the reaction speed, you're not as much having to rely upon it. And that's the base game. Like, that's the base game. So now that's crossed in to even the online competitive space as well. But it's not just exclusive to that. Some games, like we talk about Soulsborne, that's the experience that the artists want to give you. Okay? And that experience, and part of what makes Souls, it's not the mere difficulty of it. It's the fact that the game is what the game is. And this is why when the Demon's Souls remake came out and those games journalists were griping about the fact that it didn't have a difficulty slider or the ability to change. And FromSoft said, look, we don't care. The game is what the game is. But that's part of the experience. It's part of every encounter feels like high stakes, right? Every encounter, there's mechanics that you have to master. It's a puzzle in itself in the gameplay. It embodies the essence of live response. You got to dodge. You got to do all of that in order to be able to accomplish it. Now, what the normie comes in and says, well, what's wrong with me being able to experience the story? See, again, this is why it's one-sided, because it's this entitlement culture. And this is why I believe that it's the same kind of people, right? This is why it seems like all of these guys' profiles read the same damn way, and I could be arguing about a completely different subject. It's a bunch of fools that feel entitled to being able to access anything and everything, and it must include them in it, which is a bullshit point. Not everything needs to be made with every single person in mind. In fact, what you can get, which is what we're getting right now with gaming, a lot of AAA studios who are trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. And yeah, their games might look good, but they're mundane as shit. Because they become the master of none. We saw this with Marvel's Avengers, which is a game that they attempted to make so fucking stupid to where it appeals to LARPers, right? People that love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? It appeals to LARPers, and the overall concept game design was shit. The combat system was one of the best I've ever seen in a superhero game, and it gets completely botched because the core game design was dog shit. And it didn't even appease the people that they were trying to appeal to, right? We see this happen all of the time. This isn't some phantom concept that we're making up. But this is the part that they don't seem to understand when they say more options, the better. No. Just because you have a bunch of options does not mean the game is better or even a better experience. You just can now complete it. this is what you need to understand. When a game is made with difficulty in mind, or like let's say a change where it can slide, and again, we're not talking about turning off motion blur or some shit like that. We're talking about core game play, right? Where it is on a scale. Yes, not everybody. Some games do it different. Most games don't pull it off. It's kind of cheesy in terms of how they do their difficulty sometimes, and oftentimes it's like damage sponge, so that enemies it takes them more longer to kill, stuff like that. Not really any, like, they don't get more complex or anything in that regards as you heighten up the difficulty. But that's what those games have to do, and those games have to make something on scale, right? If you make something on scale, or something that has to be scaled per se, you can actually make a more mundane experience by trying to include everybody, right? Because you're not going into it, or it doesn't matter. Maybe it's an enemy design. You're not going into it with the enemy design that, okay, this enemy is going to act as such, right? The enemy, and we're going to have this uber unique experience where this is the only enemy that does all of that. You can no longer do that. Right? Because now you have to make it to where it's so dumbed down, that enemy, to where now once he's easy, very easy, or very easy, normal, hard, or very hard, it's scaling fucking 5 levels. And so there's something that you have to dumb down fundamentally to make that one, let's say, boss, offline, online, doesn't matter. You have to make that one boss to be able to scale. That could fuck the game up. Because you're having to change a mechanic, or you're having to have a mechanic that is scalable, that could make for a mundane experience. Right? So my thing is yes, some games are able to pull that off more than others, better than others. But the idea that every developer or every game must have these options is nonsense. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's just a emotional appeal to where people, often folks that are very bad at games, some of which try to hide behind some sort of disability, which is the hilarious thing, because even amongst all of us that are able-bodied, not all of us are equal in gamers. You've seen some of these like Warzone streamers, which have lightning speed, reaction speed that I'm generally good at video games. I can't react like fucking Aiden can when he's playing COD. That motherfucker is unreal, right? He's unreal. But so there's a scale even among us that don't have disabilities. But there's also people that, I don't know, play games where they fucking don't even have hands and they somehow play the motherfucker out the game. And that's a completely different conversation. So maybe you have a controller or something that is more able to accommodate someone. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about ease of access, or not more so ease of access. We're talking about making the game easier. Okay, we're talking about dumbing down or the game in itself to accommodate, which is what this guy did, to accommodate his experience. Now, I'm not saying that a fucking racing game can't do that. Racing games can probably do that the easier among of all types of games. But that's the problem here, is that these people are trying to infiltrate virtually every single game and think that that's a knock on the game in itself, in which it doesn't include them, because people feel entitled to be able to complete or be decent. And that's when I'm using that term decent and the ability to be able to do. They think that they're obligated and entitled for that experience, right? There are certain games, and this is, I think, maybe even partially a generational issue, because back in when I grew, and I'm not that old, by the way, but when I grew up, people had stacks of Super Nintendo games and stacks of Sega Genesis games that they never complete. I talk about it all the time. I can go get you a stack of games right now from my closet of Sega Genesis games. We've done it before that I've never completed. Vector Man 2. I never beat that shit. But never once do I remember us crying to the devs saying that they must change some shit up. And now, because people are hiding behind these disabilities and shit, they're thinking that, I can kind of hijack that, which is, by the way, evil as fuck. Trying to hijack their experience to then make it about you. Oh, I don't have the reaction speed. So what? There are certain games that are not built with you in mind. That's fine. There's nothing criminal about that. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is they act like there's some sort of issue. When people say, okay, look at Demon Souls. I don't want that to have, or Souls. I like it the way it is. Let it be what it is, and let it be continue in the direction that it's sort of going in, because that's the style of the game. And they say, well, no, you're locking people out. So what? So what? Why are you entitled to be able to play it? And there was one response that someone said here, and it really goes to show kind of the state of gaming. I'm going to show you here in a video right now. Where was it at? It was a really good response. Right here. Here's it. This is what the person said. Oh, no, they deleted the tweet. That's fine. I'm going to find it. I'm going to get it back. Here it is right here. It says, I think it's deleted, but maybe it didn't. But this is what this person said. Or maybe people just like a game and want to be able to experience its story without spending hundreds of hours on it. So basically, you want an interactive movie. This is the one issue that happened when games, it's the billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry that it is, unfortunately has attracted a bunch of people that don't even sound like they are even fundamentally sound with what a video game actually is. You know what I mean? But you look at this person and they're saying that they just want to experience the stories. You can experience the story. You can watch it on YouTube with somebody that is better than you at it, and they can complete it. Watch a walkthrough. No one using accessibility modes is going around saying that they beat it on the hardest difficulty. Your pride and ego can remain intact. Again, that's the straw man, because nobody's that I know is making that fucking claim. When we tell you to get good, it's essentially saying you adjust to the game. The game doesn't adjust to you. That's what that concept means, right? You adjust to the game. The game does not adjust to you. So just because you can't do it, don't mean other people can't, right? So with that being said, looking at this issue, which is a non-issue, but it's made one because of these weirdos, the core problem is that you guys are trying to take that overall concept and apply it to all of games and all of gaming, in which they must include these options and that they're made better because of that. I'm calling bullshit on that. Because some games can be ruined. We've seen them by trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator and make their game more accessible, not in the sense of dealing with people with disabilities. And stop hiding behind a disability regarding your reaction speed. Look, that's what gaming is about. And again, even amongst those of us that are able-bodied, there's deficiencies among us. Not everybody's equal in every game. Some people could whoop your motherfucking ass and you can't touch them on certain fighting games, and you thought you was good, right? And you may beat the average person, but then there's someone that's better than you. It's on scale virtually with all of us. All of us have some sort of deficiency in regards to some games. So that's a non-point to act like that's something worth even pointing out. Because even those of us that don't have disabilities, right, or at least are able-bodied enough to play your standard game, there's still differences among the skill levels amongst us all, right? And then even then, some people who are able-bodied just suck. And there's nothing wrong with that. You look at the game, you say, all right, bet, I can't beat it, you move on. Some people can. Stop looking at, well, some people can't and some people want to do it this way, and look at it, well, there are other people that are already playing this game, which is the core demographic of the game's player base anyway, that have absolutely no problem doing that. The overall point is that not every game has to keep you in mind, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it's one-sided, and that's why people are griping about it right now, because right now the OP specifically brings up Souls, but these weirdos who can't beat it that want Souls franchise changed for them, as if for those of us that have played this and that will continue to play those types of games, we're just supposed to continue to, oh no, not that, we're supposed to have you come allow the developers to fundamentally change the game. Again, that's a core part of the game. It's not just about how difficult it is. It's just how these characters and enemies react in comparison to how you play them. There's that experience is a unique one, right? So if you fundamentally change that, you change the game, right? Because now you got to make something on fucking scale. There's nothing wrong with you being locked out. And you shouldn't see that. And this is on some like psychological shit. I'm going to end this on like a preacher's note. You should not feel threatened by the inability to do something. There's nothing wrong with that. The inability to be included, or rather not being included in something, there's nothing wrong with that. Because not everything has you in mind in terms of your experience. And if you find that as a threat, you have a psychological problem because you're looking for validation somewhere in which that person's not really trying to seek you out. You should not see that as a threat. Just see it as this individual thing is not made with with me in mind. That doesn't mean that there's a knock on it. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with that. It just means that that's a unique experience for those people that are part of that demographic. And there's nothing wrong with it. And you can have yours. You can have your games where you don't really have to think. You can just kind of waltz on through it. Those developers can make games for you. I'm not interested in those, but they can make those with you. But the core problem isn't that. It's that you are now trying to go to every game and think that it has to embody or rather encompass your individual experience, and you think more options is better and that it cannot change the game at all because they try to appeal to the lowest common denominator or try to give a lot of people options for the sake of having more people be engaged in the game. Again, we've seen this happen among the fighting games. We've seen this happen even among offline story games where the game mechanics are just made to shit. And some of it has to do with not turning off motion blur or trying to accommodate those that have some sort of illness or deficiency in that regard. No, it's for a lot of people. It's like, well, we don't want to make it too hard or we had to make it on scale. So it's a stupid game that anybody can waltz through. And it makes for a mundane experience. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.